Hi guys, I'm Shahan. I'm here to show you guys how to make Adana Kebab. It's a traditional kebab from the southern portion of Turkey in a region called Cilicia. It is a lamb kebab flavored with lots of hot peppers, which you see kind of in front of me here. Aleppo, some pepper paste, and also some fresh peppers. So generally speaking, you want a lamb that's going to be fatty. Most people would view this as a negative thing because they're going to want to be on like a, fat-free diet or whatever. But the reason you want a high-fat piece of lamb is, one, it's going to keep the meat moist while it's roasting over the coals. It's going to impart flavor, and it's also going to help emulsify the kebab. So you really want to use something that's high-fat. This example, we're using a 75-25. And traditionally, the way they would actually grind the meat isn't a true grind. They actually chop it to the point of it having the look of a grind. In terms of the lamb quality, the lamb there has a section on the back end that's basically full of fat, and they use that to flavor the meat as well as impart the fat content with the lean meat as well. We're gonna put the lamb into the freezer. We want this to be not frozen, but nice and cold. So when we're mixing it, we're not warming up the actual fat in the meat and melting it. That would result again in a broken emulsification. It would result in a kebab that's chalky and not fully formed, and it kind of would fall apart. So again, we want this not frozen, but as cold as possible before it gets frozen. We're gonna start with our aromatics, which is gonna be half an onion and 2 cloves of garlic. We're just gonna clean these up, and we're actually gonna use a food processor. So you do want your onions and garlic to be almost pureed in consistency. Not so much like a full, like watery kind of smoothie, but you do want it to be really finely chopped. So once your onions and garlic are essentially turned into this nice kind of paste, we're gonna take it and put it in the sieve and drain out all the liquid. And the intention with this is to get rid of all the moisture, or most of the moisture, from the onion and garlic. The added water content would basically break, quote unquote, your kebab. It would create more of kind of a meat paste rather than a nice emulsification. While we let this drain, we're gonna go ahead and chop some of the other vegetables up. We're gonna use 1 red Fresno chili. Usually they would use an heaped pepper, which is what they make things like urfa biber or Aleppo pepper out of. But this is our closest substitute here in the States. And again, just 1 is perfectly fine. These are generally pretty spicy. I will leave some of the seed in, but we'll take most of it out. So you do want this pepper to generally be fairly finely chopped. And that's just to distribute the pepper throughout the kebab and not have it be, concentrated in one area or the other, or just take a big bite of a giant piece of pepper. Next up, we're gonna chop up a little bit of parsley. Generally speaking, there's not always parsley included in some of these recipes, but I do like it. It adds a nice bit of freshness to it, a good, nice aromatic flavor, and it goes really well with the lamb and the spices. So with the parsley, you don't necessarily have to have it be fine chopped. Just a nice coarse medium chop is totally okay. All right, so we've taken the meat back out of the freezer. We just popped it in for 5-10 minutes. Again, you just want this meat to be as cold as possible. You can see here that the texture of these onions is kind of like a dry kind of paste now. This is exactly where you want it to be. I can show you how much water came out of that. Again, you don't want this liquid mixing in with your meat because it's going to create kind of a pasty texture instead of a nice kind of bouncy, really kind of kebab texture instead. All right, so we have here some of our ingredients that we're gonna use to flavor the kebab with. And again, this is a spicy kebab, and so you'll see kind of a pattern here. This is a hot pepper paste that comes from, again, the region of the Middle East. It's usually just salted and then cooked down really slowly until it creates a puree. There is a little bit of skin and seed in this, but it's not really a big deal. It's not gonna ruin the texture or the flavor of it. Next up, we have Aleppo pepper. Again, this is gonna be the heaped pepper that I was talking about earlier. This is a very classic seasoning, and you'll see this from anywhere from Turkey all the way down to Egypt. It's used in a lot of dishes, a lot of garnishes. Has a really sweet kind of spicy flavor to it, really fruity, really flavor forward. I do use a little bit of cayenne to help spice it up a little bit more. It just adds a different layer of heat to the dish. And then next up we have our chopped red Fresno chili, and we're looking to add about 20 to 21 grams of salt to the meat itself. I also keep a bowl with ice water next to me. I dip my hands in it periodically, so when I'm mixing the actual meat, I'm not heating up the meat by any means, or again, melting the fat away. The process does need to stay fairly cold at all times. Again, why we are freezing the meat a little bit before we actually start mixing it. So it's really important to mix your meat really well. What you're doing while you're mixing is binding the fat content and the protein together. And again, that's just gonna create a better texture. It's not gonna be chalky, it's gonna be bouncy instead. If you guys notice, I threw a couple of ice cubes into the actual bowl itself. Again, I'm just trying to control the temperature here. If I ever feel it getting a little bit too warm, or if I feel the meat kind of heating up by any means, throwing a couple of ice cubes in there is a good way to counterbalance that. I am gonna remove the ice cubes before I finish the product. So usually a good indicator that you've mixed it enough is if you can hold the meat up and it just slowly starts to fall down. That means your meat is well bound, it's uniform, and it's created an emulsification. So we're gonna put this in the fridge for the next few minutes. Again, we just wanna keep it cold. We'll pull it out maybe a few minutes before we start cooking it, but while this is sitting in the fridge, we're gonna get our fire going. So we're gonna be using a traditional mangal to cook our kebabs on. This is basically a grateless grill, and we're gonna be using hot charcoals to cook the actual meat. There's gonna be no fire involved. This way we avoid any flare-ups, so that meat isn't improperly flavored. So guys, our meat has rested a little bit. We've started our fire. It's almost ready to go. So we're gonna start forming our meat. This is a shish, literally from, when you say shish kebab, this is what it means, shish kebab. So we're actually gonna form the meat on this directly. I'm still gonna be using ice water, again, just to kind of keep my hands cold. It also helps me not have the meat stick onto my actual hand itself when I'm forming the kebabs on the shish. We have our coals in the grill. We have our kebabs on skewers. So we're gonna start grilling. And again, right now, this process should take about 5 to 7 minutes on the grill, depending on how hot it is. I am standing right here and I can feel the heat pretty strongly. So it's like a nice hot grill, which is perfect. We're also gonna have some vegetables that we're gonna just toss right into the hot coals. So they cook while the kebab is cooking as well. We have ourselves a kind of like little casserole pan with a little bit of flatbread. This is lavash, just a traditional bread from the region as well. So once the kebab is done cooking, we could just kind of plate it right in here directly and it stays warm. We're just gonna remove it off the skewer with another piece of bread right into our handy dandy casserole dish. Our vegetables are still cooking, so we're gonna take this time to make a little garnish salad for the actual dish. So you just need a white onion or a yellow onion. You wanna just rough chop the parsley, even more coarse than we did for the kebab itself. Just a little bit of salt, just to season it. It also draws out some of the moisture from the onion and lessens the spiciness of the onion. And then a little bit of sumac. Sumac is a cured berry that comes from trees in the Middle East usually. It has a really tangy, like kind of lemony flavor. So the more you add to it, the more kind of tart flavor you're gonna get. I personally like a lot of it, so I go a little heavy-handed on my sumac. All right, guys, we're just gonna plate up our finished product here. We got our pita bread. You can use this, naan, lavash, any sort of flatbread is like perfectly fine, whatever fits your flavor template. We have our lovely grilled meat here, just to put on top. Our grilled vegetables, which go really well. It's our salad on top. I like a lot of onions, so a little bit more sumac, a little bit more Aleppo pepper. And that's kind of it, guys. You could eat this really any way you'd like, with some rice, potato salad, whatever you feel like. Honestly, I just eat it hot off the grill with a piece of bread and it's delicious. That's it, there you have it, some Adana Kebab. Please like and subscribe and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.